The 2024 Copa America will be hosted in the United States of America in the summer of 2024. The groups are out, and we will have 10 CONMEBOL nations and 6 CONCACAF nations for this specific edition. So today, we're going to do a full prediction video going through each group and the knockout rounds, the entire bracket. I know, we're still roughly 6 months away, and it's a bit too early to predict what's actually going to happen, the actual outcome. But we're going to do it anyway, and trust me, I'll probably get most of these right. Hi, I'm here, Filippo, and welcome to Tactical Manager TV, and welcome to the 2024 Copa America predictions video, the self-claimed best Copa America prediction video on YouTube. Self-high five. And as I said, I'll be going through all the groups, the entire bracket. Feel free to comment your predictions on the comment section down below and to hate on me in the comment section as well if you disagree with my picks. And if you do, you are probably wrong. I usually get the last to laugh, so good luck on that. And of course, drop a like in this video if you want us to continue the Copa America coverage leading into the tournament itself. And also, you do have to hit the like button, because if you don't, they will cancel the 2024 Copa America. Do you want it to be canceled? No? So what are you waiting for? And this video is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Their link is on the description alongside with the promo code, but more on that later. Okay, let's begin. Before I go through the groups, let me quickly give you the format of this tournament. I mean, you have to know that to know where we're going to go with this video. And the format is pretty straightforward. We have 4 groups of 4 with a total of 16 nations, 10 of them being from CONMEBOL, 6 being from CONCACAF. The top 2 teams of each group will advance to the quarterfinals, and from there forward, it'll just be a regular single-leg knockout round tournament, essentially the same format as the past few World Cups, but with less teams, like half of the amount of teams. Group A will cross paths with Group B in the knockout rounds, and Group C will cross paths with Group D. And then these groups from one side of the bracket will only clash, at the final. And again, it'll be hosted in the United States of America, but enough of that. This is a prediction video. So let's go to Group A. So Group A has Chile, Argentina, Peru, and then the 4th nation is still to be determined between Canada and Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, the rude Canadians did not qualify directly to the Copa America, and they still have to play Trinidad and Tobago to qualify. Now, before I give you my prediction for this group, let's talk about each single one of these nations. And why don't I start with Argentina? You see, they are the clear favorites of this group, and I would expect them to get 7 to 9 points. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows with the current World Cup and Copa America champions. Di Maria and Messi, who have been their 2 most important players in the past 10-15 years, have aged. As they are still brilliant, they are no longer in their prime. This will be Di Maria's last international tournament and possibly Messi's last international tournament as well. On top of that, their current coach, Lionel Scaloni, wants to resign. Yeah, man, that dude wants to bounce. He wants to leave. And you may be asking, why? It's unclear. So things aren't perfect right now, even though they currently lead CONMEBOL's World Cup qualifying. Other players like Lautaro Martinez, Enzo Fernandez, Julian Alvarez are all going to have to step up in order for Argentina to win the Copa America once again. But I do have to say, to me, they are still the favorites regardless of all the issues, alongside Brazil and an in-form Uruguay. I must say, an in-crisis Brazil right now and an in-form Uruguay. But we'll talk about those 2 teams later in the video, Uruguay and Brazil. So clearly I have Argentina topping this group. In second place, I have Peru. Yes, I have Peru finishing second in this group, even though they're currently in last place in the CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying. So why the heck do I have them going through? They're literally in terrible form right now. And this is why. They're currently firing their current coach, Juan Reynoso, and it is speculated that Gareca could return. They also were speculated that they could sign Peckerman. And once Peru gets the coaching situation figured out, I would absolutely not underestimate them in the Copa America. In the past 5 editions, they made it to 3 semifinals and 1 final. Gareca playing a big role recently, of course, but they also made it far without him. And you see, On paper, they have never been great in those 5 editions that I just mentioned. But for Peru, it often seems like their whole is far better than the sum of its parts. And obviously, shout out to Orlando City goalkeeper Pedro Galezi. He's fantastic. But the big reason I believe Peru will go through has less to do with them and more with the competition that they will face. I mean, Chile, Canada, Trinidad and Tobago, depending on who qualifies, let's be honest, all 3 of those are just not really good. You know, Chile did win the 2015 and 2016 Copa America. 2016, which by the way was also played in the United States of America, but that golden generation with Vidal, Alexis Sanchez, Medel, Vargas, Bravo is long gone at this point. I mean, some players are still active, but they have age and are far from their prime. They failed to qualify to the 2018 World Cup. They failed to qualify to the 2022 World Cup. And at the moment, they are also not qualifying to the 2026 World Cup. I would argue they're only truly better than Bolivia in South America. I mean, no disrespect to Chile, but I just don't see it with this current team. They're just not very good. Then the other team is Canada or Trinidad and Tobago, which depends on who wins the knockout round this March of 2024. I believe Canada will win, so let's pretend Canada qualified here for a second. Canada has great players like Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, Eustáquio, Buchanan, Ismael Kone, and a few others, but their defense is horrible, and a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. The depth is non-existent. I also firmly believe that John Herdman, their previous coach, got Canada to punch above its weight during the World Cup qualifying in 2021 and 2022. Canada's situation is also a mess with the federation, almost going bankrupt. I think they can do better than the World Cup, and they won't get 0 points in the Copa America if they just sit back and play in transition. But at the same time, I don't see them doing very well. I think they'll get points, but not go through. And again, they still have to qualify. They still have to beat Trinidad and Tobago. They didn't qualify because they got defeated by Jamaica. Okay, so just to recap and to summarize it, I have Argentina in first, Peru in second, Canada in third actually, and Chile in fourth place for Group A. Now let's go to Group B. Group B has Jamaica, Mexico, Ecuador, and Venezuela. To me, this group is actually quite interesting. It's the only group without a clear title contender, but it's also a group that has no punching bag. Essentially what I'm trying to say is there's a lot of parity within this group. This is probably the toughest one to predict in the entire competition. So let's start with the team that I consider to be the best in this group, which is Ecuador. Ecuador is no longer coached by Gustavo Alfaro. The man in charge now is Felix Sanchez, the former coach of the Qatari national team in the 2022 World Cup. With Qatar, Sanchez loved to play with a back 5 and 2 players up top, essentially a 5-3-2 formation, mostly trying to hit the opponent on the counter in transition. And despite Qatar being awful, I think he did a good job there. I mean, the Qatari national team sucks. They were terrible. I thought he did the best he could. There's only so much a coach can do when you have terrible players. And Felix Sanchez actually started early on with Ecuador playing a back 5, but recently I have seen him change to a 4-2-3-1 formation, which shows he can still be tactically flexible and adjust. Ecuador is currently in 5th place in World Cup qualifying, which gets them to the next World Cup. Their main struggle has been scoring goals, while their defense has been rock solid. In terms of players, their main guys are obviously Moises Caicedo from Chelsea, Piero Hincapié from Bayer Leverkusen, Pervis Estupinan from Brighton, and probably their biggest talent nowadays is the 16-year-old Kendry Páez from Independiente del Valle that will be moving to Chelsea at age 18. Despite being this young, he's getting better and better each month and already being effective at the senior level, so expect Kendry Páez to be in the Copa America as long as he is healthy. The Ecuadorian side can do damage to the big boys and should absolutely not be underestimated. I also think this team is extremely dangerous in transition, which is how Felix Sanchez seems to like to play, so I would not underestimate Ecuador by any means. Next up, we have Mexico. I think Ecuador will finish first, and then Mexico will be in second. So let's talk about El Tri. In what is the worst generation I have ever seen them have in my life. Seriously, they're really not good, which also explains why they keep losing to the United States of America. And Mexico is currently coached by Jimmy Lozano, and a bad Copa America would probably get him fired, like if he gets knocked out in the group stage. The main thing Mexico has going for them right now is Santi Jimenez, that has been scoring goals for fun in the Eredivisie in the Netherlands. However, those performances have not been quite the same for Mexico. No, seriously, man. he hasn't been horrendous for Mexico, but he's one player for his club, Feyenoord, and another player when he plays for the national team. Like, good for his club and bad for the national team. That's what I'm trying to say. However, there's one thing that's very important to point out about Mexico, which is that they will essentially be playing at home. No, seriously, their national team will pack a 90,000 seat stadium in the United States with ease. So that's an advantage for L3. They'll be playing at home. As I said, I have Mexico advancing in second with Ecuador in first, but I don't really have high expectations for this Mexican side. My third place team is Venezuela, and they could easily surprise Mexico and knock them out, in my personal opinion. This Venezuelan side is actually not a punching bag as they used to be. They're currently in 4th place in World Cup qualifying in CONMEBOL, ahead of Ecuador and Brazil. Now, they're not better than Ecuador and Brazil, but what I'm saying is that this team is no longer a joke. I mean, they can pull results. They managed to tie Brazil while playing in Brazil, and they also held a 0-0 draw with Ecuador at home. They're not brilliant, and they're weaker than Mexico on paper, but they could go through in this group. I would not underestimate them as well. They're currently coached by Argentine coach Fernando Batista. Last but not least, we have my favorite team in this Copa America. Not the favorites to go far, just my favorite in terms of me liking them. I think they're awesome. No, seriously, I really love them. And to be fair, they might be the first or second in this group in terms of talent on paper. They have the likes of Mikel Antonio, Leon Bailey, Ethan Pinock, Bobby D. Cordova-Reid. All these guys are solid or good English Premier League players. You can also add Andre Blake, the best goalkeeper in Major League Soccer, Damari Gray. I mean, the list goes on. And they are also recruiting plenty of English dual nationals. But the reason I have them placed in 4th place is because they have been so dysfunctional as a program. It's very tough to bet on their success regardless of the talent. Sure, they knocked out Canada to get here, and they seem like they have a serious coach right now at the moment, which is Heimir Hallgrímsson. I think I got that right. He's from Iceland, but I will believe it when I see it. That's all. I just don't trust Jamaica. So as I said before, this is a very tough group to predict. It's very well balanced, but I'm sticking with Ecuador in first, Mexico in second, Venezuela in third, and Jamaica in fourth. But I truly hope Ecuador and Jamaica are the ones to pull through. Now, before we continue, a quick word from our sponsor, Underdog Fantasy, because they will be adding the 2024 Copa America to their app. And obviously, the link and promo code are in the description. I'll be back in a minute. And thank you, Underdog Fantasy, for sponsoring Tactical Manager TV. Underdog Fantasy is a fun game to play prior to any soccer match or basketball. Or football as well, but we don't talk about those two in Tactical Manager TV. Sometimes basketball during live watch-alongs. I have been playing Underdog Fantasy for over a year now. You can download the app by using the link on the description of this video, and you can also use the promo code TMTV. And Underdog will be matching your first deposit for up to $100. And in the process, you'll be helping the channel avoid bankruptcy. The game I mainly play is called Pick'em. You just click on it, scroll to the soccer section, and pick a player for a specific match and select the stats that you believe will be lower or higher. It's very easy to play, but be smart about your picks because it's not easy to win. I'll be playing some Underdog Fantasy during some match live streams or match live watch-alongs, so stay tuned for that, as I will be forced to cheer for a player or root against him. Now, I am a professional hater, so I'll probably be rooting for the player's downfall. Once again, don't forget to use the promo code TMTV and use the link on the description of this video. Thank you, Underdog Fantasy, for sponsoring the channel. We're back, and hopefully you already smashed the like button if you made it this far in the video. Let's talk about Group C. And Group C has Panama, the United States of America, the host nation, Uruguay, and Bolivia. Why don't we start with the national team that I expect and most people expect to top this group, and they're even title contenders. That's Uruguay. Uruguay actually struggled in the 2022 World Cup cycle. There were moments where it seemed like they wouldn't even qualify to the World Cup, and in the last Copa America, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals by Colombia. On top of that, superstar players like Luis Suarez, Cavani, they're done. So is Uruguay weak? Are they not title contenders? Wrong. They are 100% title contenders, and this team is not weak by any means. A little bit overhyped by a few, but this is a tremendous team. This is a new Uruguay brought back to life by Marcelo Bielsa, a team that has brilliant players like Valverde from Real Madrid, Ugarte from PSG, José Maria Jiménez from Atletico Madrid, Darwin Núñez from Liverpool, Matias Oliveira from Napoli, Araujo from Barcelona, the list goes on. They also have some very high quality underrated players like Arrascaeta and De La Cruz that play for Flamengo in Brazil. I could keep talking about their players. They have too many good players. So they have the players, and now they have the coach. They are in red hot form currently. They're in second place in World Cup qualifying, and they managed to defeat Brazil and Argentina in the process. And you see, I still think Brazil and Argentina are the two favorites, but Uruguay is very close. And if Brazil does not figure out their coaching situation, I would even place Uruguay ahead of them. But enough of Uruguay. Let's talk about the host nation, the United States of America. The United States men's national team made it to the semifinals of the Copa America the last time they hosted it in 2016, and then they got crushed by Argentina in the semifinals. But this edition, the team is much stronger than the one in that edition, with players like Christian Pulisic, Balogun, Weston McKennie, Yunus Musa, Dest, Gio Reyna, Tim Weah, all playing for top clubs in the best leagues in Europe, along with multiple other players that can support them. I'm not going to list all the players. I don't have to do it in this video. You can look up some of them yourself. And if you're a US men's national team fan, you probably know all of them because we cover this at the channel constantly. This national team does, however, have a coach that is a problem, with a very questionable track record of doing the bare minimum and always crumbling when things get tough. I'm not going to expand on all the issues that Greg Berhalter has, but the point I'm trying to make is, based on Berhalter's track record, I fully expect the US men's national team to beat Panama and Bolivia at home and probably not get the result needed against Uruguay, even though I think we have the players to compete with Uruguay. Are we better than Uruguay right now? No, the United States is not better than Uruguay right now. But on the right day, with the right coach, can the United States men's national team defeat Uruguay? Yes, the United States absolutely can defeat Uruguay with the right coach and the right day playing at home. Why wouldn't we be able to do so? We gotta raise that bar. But under Berhalter, are we probably gonna beat Uruguay? No, I doubt it. Most likely not. But if we head to the last game needing a draw, that's possible. I mean, we did tie England in the World Cup, even though it was Berhalter versus Southgate. I don't like our odds when it's Berhalter versus Bielsa, which is why I placed Uruguay in first and the United States in second. I mean, no disrespect to the other two nations in the group, specifically Panama. Under Thomas Christensen, they can absolutely give the US men's national team in Uruguay a run for their money. Panama is not bad. They also have Carrasquilla, which is probably the most underrated player in CONCACAF right now. Now, as for Bolivia, unless they played in like Colorado in the altitude, I don't see them doing any damage, man. The United States, Uruguay, and Panama should have no issues defeating Bolivia. I mean, no altitude, no problem. So I'm going to say Bolivia is going to get 0 points in this Copa America. So just to recap, for Group C, I have Uruguay in first, the United States in second, Panama in third, and Bolivia in fourth. Now, let's go to Group D. Now we have Group D that has Paraguay, Brazil, Colombia, and then the fourth nation will be between Costa Rica and Honduras. And people think Brazil is washed. They're frauds. The team ain't good. But before we proceed in the video, let me give you a few names. Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Bruno Guimarães, Casemiro, Marquinhos, Gabriel Magalhães, Martinelli, Gabriel Jesus, Rafinha, Paquetá, Militão, Endrick, possibly a return of Neymar. We'll see if he'll be back in time for the Copa America. So those are just a few of many names Brazil has. And based on just those names that I gave you, would you not consider this a top 5 national team in the world, at least on paper? Because this team right now has 3 main issues. 1, there's no full-time coach. Fernando Diniz is a part-time coach. He was coaching Fluminense to win a Libertadores and coaching the national team. So I don't believe he was fully focused on the national team. And then they're also waiting for Carlo Ancelotti. Until Brazil has a full-time coach and figures that out, they'll continue to be a mess. Another problem with Brazil are the fullbacks. The fullbacks are mostly mediocre at best. And then lastly, someone has to step up while Neymar is injured, or if Neymar is gone. Who knows if he'll ever return in terms of like being the Neymar that we expect. So someone has to step up. And what I'm trying to tell you is I believe the coaching situation will be resolved by the 2024 Copa America. And that alone will be massive, and Brazil will be a completely different team. I also think someone will step up, being Vinicius Jr. or Rodrigo, maybe both. And if not, Neymar might be back by then. The fullbacks will likely remain an issue until the Copa America, possibly even longer, which sucks when you take into account this was a national team that had the likes of Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Dani Alves, some really good fullbacks in the past. Regardless, I have Brazil topping the group. I think many forgot how dominant Brazil was with these same players in the 2022 World Cup cycle because they had a coach. The entire lead up to the World Cup, Brazil dominated South America. Now let's talk about Colombia, which I have them in second place in this group. So Colombia were a mess last cycle and they failed to qualify to the World Cup, but they are looking much better now under Nestor Lorenzo. Luis Diaz is the superstar of this team, and he counts on a great supporting cast that makes this team extremely tough to compete with. They even defeated Brazil in World Cup qualifying. They're still calling up James Rodriguez, but honestly, he does well for them. Colombia is undefeated in World Cup qualifying with 3 wins, 3 draws in 6 matches. They're only behind Uruguay and Argentina. The CONCACAF nation in this group will be Costa Rica or Honduras. Regardless of who it is, I expect them to be the punching bags of this group, whether it's Costa Rica or Honduras. Costa Rica's team has aged and they weren't able to fully replace the veterans from the golden generation, and Honduras is okay at best. Maybe these teams can battle with Paraguay, but probably not, because Paraguay ain't that bad. And if Brazil and Colombia don't bring their A game, Paraguay can cause trouble. They have some interesting pieces like Miguel Almiron that plays for Newcastle, and Ciso that plays for Brighton, Gustavo Gomes that plays for Palmeiras, but they don't seem to play well together for some reason. They're also not doing great in World Cup qualifying, so I don't know. They should be able to beat the CONCACAF nation, sure, but probably not going to beat Brazil or Colombia, which is why I have Brazil in first, Colombia in second, Paraguay in third, and Costa Rica or Honduras in fourth. Now, are you ready for the knockout rounds? So for the knockout rounds, all these matches are hypothetical. They might not happen. They'll only happen if I got all my predictions right. So this part of the video is mostly made up. All the matches and groups I talked before are real. And understand, one side of the bracket all the way to the semifinals has group A and B. So the group with Argentina and Mexico, for example, they go on one side of the bracket, A and B. And then the other side of the bracket has groups C and D all the way through the semifinals. So let's start with the side of the bracket that has groups A and B. And match 1 will be between Argentina and Mexico. That will actually be played in Houston. And preferably, I would like to knock out both of these teams, like send Mexico and Argentina home, just defeat both of them. But I have to pick one. And if Argentina and Mexico play each other in the quarterfinals, I 100% have Argentina advancing. I don't trust this Mexican generation. The team is not good. Argentina will have Messi. The team is just better in every single position. So for that reason, I have Argentina knocking out Mexico in the quarterfinals. Even though Argentina will face Mexico in what will probably be a home game for Mexico, but still, Argentina will advance. The other match is between Ecuador and Peru. And for this one, I have Ecuador advancing. They're just a much better team, and now they also have World Cup experience, so I expect Ecuador to make a deep run in this Copa America, make it to the semifinals at least. So I have Ecuador knocking out Peru. Now we're going to go to the other side of the bracket, and then the first match will be Brazil versus the United States. And you may be asking me, Filippo, who will you root for, Brazil or the United States in this match? To which I'll tell you, when it happens, I'll figure it out. Just to be honest, just to tell you what I think right now, Brazil winning this Copa America doesn't really matter too much. While the United States making a deep run, I don't think we'll win it with the United States, but making a deep run might mean more for U.S. soccer than Brazil winning the Copa America means for Brazil. Brazil really cares about the World Cup. So I'll probably go with the United States, but I might end up staying neutral. But here's the question. Who do I have advancing? This match will be played at Phoenix, and I have Brazil advancing. Come on, Brazil is far superior to the United States, and I'm going to be honest with you, regardless of who we face, with Berhalter, and I don't think he would adapt, and by regardless, I mean Brazil or Colombia, I think we lose. This is the U.S. men's national team all-time combined record while facing Brazil and Colombia. We've played them 40 times, Brazil and Colombia combined. We only won 4 matches, and we have a negative 42 goal differential. And we have Greg Berhalter. He hasn't proven that he can pull an upset. So until I see it, I won't believe it. And for that reason, I have Brazil knocking out the United States in the quarterfinals. The other quarterfinals is between Colombia and Uruguay, which is a rematch of the quarterfinals in 2021, where Colombia knocked out Uruguay on penalty kicks. But this time, if things stand the way they are right now, I have Uruguay knocking out Colombia in the quarterfinals, probably at regular time. But regardless, Uruguay and Colombia, I have Uruguay advancing. So that leads to two matchups, Argentina and Ecuador on one side of the bracket for the semifinals, and Brazil and Uruguay on the other side of the bracket. And at this stage of the competition, the semifinals, anything can happen. But between Argentina and Ecuador, I would probably have Argentina advancing and knocking out Ecuador. I do think Ecuador could put up a fight, but Argentina are the clear favorites. And between Brazil and Uruguay, I'm obviously assuming Brazil will have their coaching situation adjusted. And if that is adjusted, I think Brazil will be back to being that dominant force in South America that they have been under Chichi in the 2022 cycle. And Brazil would knock out Uruguay if the coaching situation is resolved. And again, Uruguay will be a very tough opponent under Marcelo Bielsa. With that said, the final would be Brazil and Argentina. And then you can pick. Who is going to win the 2024 Copa America in your personal opinion? Is it Brazil? Is it Argentina? Is it Uruguay? Is it another team? Let me know in the comment section down below. I have Brazil and Argentina making it to the final. I could be wrong. You can let me know what I'm right. You can let me know what I'm wrong. I'm probably right. And thank you everyone very much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us for much more Copa America coverage. During the tournament, we're going to double, triple, quadruple the coverage. We're going to cover every single game possible, just like we did in the 2022 World Cup. I want to thank you all very much for watching. Thank you Underdog also for sponsoring this video. Drop a like before you go and have a great day.